What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Pocket M's. Today we're going to be playing at the Garden Casino, hopping into the 5-5 game once again. Today's game is pretty action-packed. You guys are going to see that for yourselves very shortly. But first, let's take a look at what we did before heading over there.
Mona and I take my dog Bailey out for a walk. She is just the cutest pug ever. Then we head over to Taste Tea, one of my favorite boba spots in Chino Hills. We order a buttload of fries, some karate chicken, and some matcha milk tea with boba. Now we're ready to get our gamble on at the Gardens Casino. So in our very first hand, we have Jack Deuce of Hearts in early position. This hand isn't recorded because I literally just sat down at the table, and as a new player, you're required to post. So I post for 5, I check my option, and everybody limps to the big blind, who raises puny to $15. It's a little pot builder bet. So if a couple calls in front of me, we make the call to see a flop. Nobody else seems to want to fold because it goes like 20 ways to the flop, which comes King 10 Queen Rainbow with 1 heart. We flop an open ender and backdoor flush draw. Not a bad flop. When it checks to me, I check trying to see a turn, and surprisingly, action checks around. Still a million ways, the turn is the 7 of spades. Doesn't really change much. The big blind, who's the pre-flop raiser, now delays c-bets for $25. I make the call because I have a draw, and I don't think the big blind is that strong. If he was strong and he had top pair or like a 2-pair combo, he probably would have c-bet the flop being so multi-way. The cutoff calls as well. From a million to 3 ways, the river is the brick 5 of hearts. The big blind slows down and checks, which confirms my read that he's weak. I don't really think anyone has too much in the hand at this point, so I take a stab at the pot, betting out for $65. And the cutoff quickly gets out of the way, and the big blind hesitantly folds. Let's go. We win our very first hand at the table and get our first bluff of the day through. Our stack goes from $500 to $600, just like that. So now that we finally got our camera set up, we pick up Ace King offsuit in the small blind. Big slick. There's a cutoff open to $20. The button calls, and with such a premium, I'm bumping this one up. I 3-bet to $100, and they both fold, respecting my 3-bet. Nice to take it down. And my general read of the table is that they're a bit tighter than the average table because the demographic of the table are all older players. I mean, that doesn't really say much because I'm only 22, but they are on the older side of the player pool here. So I can either change tables to find an action table, but I think I could use this to my advantage. So let's stick around. In this next hand, we have Ace Jack of Diamonds and Under the Gun 2. Under the Gun 1 limps. I open to $20. The low jack calls. And now the button 3-bets to $65. The button player is a younger male, older than me of course. He looks like he's in his late 20s and has a nose and ear piercing. So just based off his appearance, he doesn't seem to be on the tighter side of the player pool at my table. So with Ace Jack of Diamonds, I make the call with 40% of a royal flush, and the low jack calls as well. 3 ways to the flop comes Queen 9-3 Rainbow with 1 diamond. With just some backdoor draws, I check, the low jack checks, and now I'm expecting the button player to c-bet here almost always. But to my surprise, the button player doesn't c-bet, and he checks behind. Okay, interesting. The button player reveals that he isn't strong because he should be c-betting at a very high frequency as the 3-better, especially being in position. So when the turn brings in the 2 of spades, a total brick, it doesn't change anything. If my opponents had absolutely nothing, just like me, then they still have nothing. So let's try and steal this pot. I bet $75 as first to act, utilizing being out of position to my advantage. Normally, being out of position is bad, but in this situation, it actually works to my benefit because I can be the first one to take a stab at the pot. The low jack player snap folds. Okay, nice. One down, one more to go, and now the button seems very suspicious of my bet. He thinks for a while and then makes the call. Okay, I put him on pocket jacks or pocket tens at best. It's heads up now, and the river is the 8 of hearts. The only draw that gets there is Jack 10, which we block. So this 8 is actually a pretty good card because now I can represent that I have a hand like Jack 10 suited because I have the Jack of diamonds in my hand. I do just have ace high after all, so let's continue the story that we have a queen or a straight. So we size up to $175. I'm trying to get any pair under a queen to fold. Our opponent thinks about it for a while. And when I say a while, I mean like a good solid 2 to 3 minutes. And he keeps looking back at his cards, and then the bet amount, and then at the pot, and then he looks back at me. So yeah, he's in the blender for sure. We're just praying for a fold at this point because I really don't want to have to top up after only playing for less than 15 minutes. After a lot of deliberation, he eventually lets his hand go. And we get another bluff through. Let's go. I really thought he was going to call, but I am relieved he didn't. Phew. Nice to get that one through, and I'm glad my read was right. We were able to capitalize on what I assessed as a tighter table and use that to our advantage. We're able to get a pretty big bluff through early on in the session, and our stack is at $850 for a profit of $350 in the first 15 minutes. Let's keep it up. In this hand, we pick up another premium, King Queen of clubs in the small blind. The cutoff opens to $25 after a couple limps. The button calls, and I can 3-bet, but I've been 3-betting a lot so far at this table, so I choose to just call. I know, just calling on a small blind is a big mistake. I just had a live read that the cutoff was super suspicious of me and was ready to 4-bet me if I 3-bet, in which case I would have to fold. But because I didn't 3-bet, it goes 6 ways to a flop of Queen 3 deuce, 2 diamonds. Regretting that I didn't 3-bet now, I check out of position. It checks all the way to the button, who bets $105. Pretty big bet. I make the call with my top pair, and the preflop raiser tanks and makes the call with what I think is most likely ace king. 3 ways to the turn is the 10 of hearts. I check, the cutoff checks, and now the button, who's an older Caucasian male in an Adidas hoodie that I actually have myself, bets again. But he bets huge. And when I say huge, I mean for all of it. He bets $480, going for an over bet. I don't really know what he has, but I'm just trying to think what we're beating. Obviously we're beating some flush draws. Most likely, I feel like he has like ace queen or king queen that he didn't 3-bet himself, or even like a set of 2s or 3s. I don't know. I just think I'm in bad shape. Like, this player was chewing some gum, and after he puts out a big bet, he stops chewing. So, and he kind of looks a little tighter. I could be bluffing, but this is just such a big bet. Like, pretty much a $500 bluff catcher. So, yeah, I'm just going to lay it down and live to fight another day. I regret not 3-betting pre-flop, and that was probably the major mistake in this hand because I didn't know where I was at anymore in the hand, even with a strong hand like top pair good kicker. Whatever, we lose $130 from this hand because we didn't 3-bet pre-flop. Our stack goes down to $700. Lesson learned that if you want to 3-bet, just go for it until you're proven otherwise.
Do it! Just do it!
Let's try to rebound from our king-queen hand when we look down at the ladies, pocket queens, and under the gun 2. We open things up to $20. The low jack on my direct left 3-bets us to $60. He's a tournament player who just told us about the last tournament he played. So tournament players love to be aggressive pre-flop. So when it folds to me, being out of position, I'm putting in the stone cold 4-bet to $200. He snap 5-bet jams for $400, And for an extra $200, I snap it off and make the call. He asks me if I have aces. I say no. I tell him kings are good because I think he's only worried about aces. So off to a run out in an $800 pot, the flop comes 10-6 deuce, 2 clubs. The turn is the 8 of spades. And now our opponent calls for one more spade on the river, and the river is black. But it's the 8 of clubs. And we show our queens, and he shows ace-king offsuit with the ace of spades. We hold, let's go. Nice to win an $800 flip. I don't know why he was calling for one more spade when he only has one spade in his hand, but nice to win the classic flip. Queens versus ace-king. Our stack breaks the 1K mark, sitting at $1,100. Next, we pick up ace-5 of clubs in the cutoff. It folds to us, and we open to $15. The button and big blind make the call, and that's 3 ways to the flop, which comes king 4-8, 2 clubs. What a great flop for us with a nut flush draw, backdoor straight draw, overcard, and credibility of having a king as the pre-flop raiser. So when the big blind checks, I c-bet $20, and the button and big blind make the call. Still 3 ways, the turn is the 10 of spades. Big blind checks once more, and now I size up to $60, telling the story that I have a king. The button player doesn't believe me, and she makes the call. The big blind folds, and now it's heads up. Okay, after the button player calls, I think she has a king, and she's probably not folding, so I really need some help on this river. Any ace or club will do, dealer. The river comes. The 9 of clubs. Cha-ching! We river the nut flush. With the nuts, I'm obviously betting, and I ultimately decide on a $150 value bet. The button player is in the blender. She thinks for a while. And eventually flicks in a black chip to make the call. I show her the Nutter Butters, and we take down a nice size pot. Let's go. Our stack is at $1,350 in a little over an hour of play. So we lose a couple small pots until we look down at 10-8 of spades in Under the Gun 1. We open things up to $20. The small blind 3 bets to $85. The big blind cold calls the $85. Very interesting. So I was going to fold my hand to this 3-bet, but now that I'm given a great price, having to only put in an extra $65 to win $255, I make the call. Let's gamble. 3 ways in a 3-bet pot, the flop comes. 10-9-4, 2 diamonds, no spades. Okay, we have top pair, which is not bad. We're ahead of all the ace kings, ace queens, ace jack combos, and when the small blind checks, I feel pretty good about my hand. But now the big blind leads out for $150 with only $150 behind, pretty much pot committing himself. I'm putting the big blind on a flush draw, and I put the small blind on either ace king or ace queen type hand. I'm pretty sure I have the best hand, but I don't want to allow the small blind to come in with his overcards if I just make the flat call. Therefore, I make an ISO raise with what I believe is the best hand.
ISO! ISO!
But to my surprise, the small blind now goes over the top and jams all in for $790. Okay, that's not good. That looks incredibly strong. Holy cow. He probably has aces, kings, or queens, or a set in order to check raise like that. And the big blind, who's already pot committed, makes the snap call. So now I'm just thinking, it's like 500 more to me. Is it even worth calling? Or should I just surrender whatever money I put in? And I eventually decide that I have no choice but to fold. And it feels pretty bad torching $385 this hand. But yeah, We witness the rest of the hand, and the runout comes the Jack of Hearts, and the river is the 5 of diamonds, completing the flush draw. Okay, we know we aren't good anymore. One of these guys has to have a flush. And I'm correct, because the small blind shows ace queen of diamonds for the nut flush and 2 overcards on the flop, making a ultra aggressive move. And the big blind shows queen jack of hearts for open-ended on the flop with 2 overcards that bank the jack on their turn to take the lead against the small blind, but then got flushed out on the river. So our assessment was correct that we were ahead on the flop, but since we were up against 2 overcards with a draw, we were basically flipping against not just 1, but 2 players. So we weren't in that great of a shape, even though we were technically ahead. Our stack continues on a downward spiral down to $775. All right, so we're really looking to bounce back from this dip that we found ourselves in, and what better way to get our chips back than with pocket aces, the universal best hand in poker. It's okay, Exodia, you're still my favorite. Anyways, there's an early position limp, and I raised to $25 on the button. There's apparently 2 big blinds or 2 small blinds this hand because a blind left the table, which explains why I have a $5 chip invested while on the button. But whatever, I don't really know how it works, but we're just trying to get some money back. So the actual small blind folds, the big blind folds, and there's only 1 more player left to act. Come on, dude, please give me some action with aces. Nope, the limper folds, and we win the absolute minimum. What the What a waste of aces. On to the next hand. Okay, so after that failed attempt at getting some chips back, let's give ace 10 of hearts a try, and only gun 1. We open to $20, the low jack calls, and now it's heads up to a flop of ace 9-3, 2 diamonds. With top pair, I see bet $15, and now the low jack raises to $30. All right, interesting. I'm putting him on potential 2 pairs like ace 9 or ace 3, or a set of 3s or 9s, or maybe even a flush draw for a bluff. So for just $15 more, I'm not going anywhere. I make the call. The turn is the 7 of hearts. Pretty harmless card. I check to the aggressor, and he continues firing for $45. Still not going anywhere for this price, so I make the call once again. I'm just a huge non-believer in this hand. The river is the 10 of clubs. Cha-ching! We hit top 2 pair. I think he would have sized up larger if he had a set, so I'm hoping he has a smaller 2 pair like ace 9 or ace 3, or even just an ace that is in a tough position to hero call. So I decide on whether or not I want to check or lead out, and I ultimately decide on leading out for $175, betting huge like I missed my flush. He thinks about it and folds, and we can't get paid. In hindsight, I think I should have checked to keep his bluffs in, and if he had 2 pair, he probably would have bet himself for value, and if he missed his flush, then it gives him an opportunity to bluff. So I think a check is probably better in the spot, but oh well. At least we win another pot, heading in the right direction. This next hand isn't recorded because there's a limp pot, and I only had a good hand in blackjack. But then I flop 2 pair, and then I can't start recording now, right? Because that just looks super sus, and people would just know I would have something. So I ended up just playing it out and hoping nothing super eventful would happen. But you know how it is. Of course, something did happen. So just bear with me here. So we have 8 deuce offsuit in the big blind. It's a limp pot, and it goes 5 ways to the flop, which comes 8-3 deuce, 2 hearts. Cha-ching! We flop 2 pair. I check out of position. The button bets $20. The button player is a tight grandpa, so when he basically pots it, he's representing strength. Like, he's not doing this with a draw. So I would normally raise against any other opponent, but not this guy. So for that reason, I just make the call. And the under the gun 1 player calls as well. 3 ways now. The turn is the ace of clubs, bringing in 2 flush draws and putting out better 2 pair combos like ace 3, ace deuce, ace 8, and completing the wheel with 4-5. So my hand is significantly downgraded and the board is a lot more wet. I check once more, another one checks, and the button now bets huge for $115. I am very confused. Does he have a set? He's not playing any of his draws like this, I know that for sure. The only set he could reasonably have is pocket threes because I block eights and deuces. Or maybe he might have ace eight for a top two pair now. Not feeling great about the situation. I really feel like folding, believe it or not. But I know that would be way too nitty. And so there's no choice but to make the call once again, right? So the ungun one player folds, and now it's heads up to the river, which is the 10 of diamonds. Total brick. All the draws missed. I check, hoping to get the showdown, and he bets out for $200 pretty quickly. Oh boy. I really feel like I'm behind, but I have two pair, and all the draws missed. He's a tight grandpa. He's literally staring at the TV after he throws out this big bet so nonchalantly, which usually means strength, actually. But I don't know. I feel like I have to call, or else it'll haunt me and I won't be able to sleep at night, right? Can I ever fold this? Screw it. Let's just see it. I flick in a chip for a call, and he chose pocket threes for middle set on the flop. That's what I thought. GG. We didn't trust our gut, and it costed us an additional $315. Our stack takes a large hit down to 500, back to starting stack. Alright, after getting wrecked by the grandpa, we pick up pocket twos in the button. There's an open to $10, and it goes 5 ways to a flop of king 5 deuce, 2 hearts. Cha-ching! We flop bottom set. When it checks to me, I bet $20. Probably could have gone larger to $30 or $40 because it looks like I'm just trying to steal a pot in position, but I get 2 callers nonetheless. The tight grandpa who destroyed me with his set of threes says he needs a red card. 3 ways to the turn, please no red card, is the jack of spades. Nice to see a black jack. And when it checks to me, once again, I size up to $65. Only the grandpa calls. Hoping to fade a heart, the river is the 6 of spades. Great card for me because it bricks out the front door flush draw. It does complete 3-4 for an open-ended straight, but I don't think he's got that. Or maybe he does because the grandpa donks out for $100. However, with $400 left, I'm pretty sure he doesn't have a straight. Like, I'm almost certain he doesn't have a straight. So with the best hand, let's just try to get max value. Let's get our revenge. I go all in for my remaining $400. If he can beat a set, then good for him. Well, we fade the snap call, and shortly after, he folds and shows the 9 of diamonds, saying he missed everything. What? He shows the 9 of diamonds, so he didn't have 2 hearts? The guy next to him is just as confused as I am, but regardless of what he had, we win the pot, and our stack gets some life back to $700, and we get our revenge. 10 minutes later, we look down at 10-8 of clubs in Ungun 1. Let's hope the club variety treats us better than the spades from 30 minutes earlier. We open to $20 once again. Ungun 2 calls, and the big blind calls as well. 3 ways to the flop comes 10-8-6 rainbow. Cha-ching! We flop 2 pair. The big blind checks. This isn't the board or flop for my range, so I choose to check, planning to check raise. The Ungun 2 takes the bait and bets out for $20. It folds to me, and now it's time to spring the trap. I check raise to $60. Ungun 2 goes over the top and jams for about $200. With top 2 pair, I snap call, and the run out comes deuce, which is a total brick, and a jack. I show my 2 pair, and we're good. Ungun 2 comments, wow, you raised $20 with 10-8? Just wow. And I'm just like, what? It's suited. I ask, you just had a 10, huh? 10-9? And he's like, yeah, I had 10-9. And in my head, I'm like, dude, 10-9 and 10-8, they're basically the same thing if you ask me. But I guess not to him. Our stack goes back to $970, nearing the 1K mark. Strap in your seatbelts because you guys are about to witness some crazy shenanigans here at my table. Under the gun 1 opens to $15. The low jack calls. I have pocket 7s in the hijack, so I call trying to set mine. The cutoff calls, and now the button 3 bets to $75. The big blind cold calls to $75. Under the gun 1 calls. The low jack calls, and now it's on me. Yeah, we're not going anywhere with 1,000,000 to 1 odds, so I call, and then the cutoff, surprisingly, folds. Wow, he is not here to gamble, it seems. So we're going 5 ways to the flop in a 3-bet pot, which comes 10-6-4, 2 clubs. We have second pair, but being this multi-way, I wouldn't want to put more money in with just a pair of 7s, so when it checks to me, I check to the button, who C-bet jams. For all of it. She goes all in for about $480. It folds to the hijack, who tanks. And he's tanking, and he's like, ooh. And then he decides to call. So with 1 caller, there's no way I can call now, even if I wanted to. So I fold, and the run out comes. The ace of diamonds. Good thing I got out of there because all the ace high flush draws just being top pair. And the river is the 3 of hearts, total brick. The button shows king jack of clubs for king high. That missed everything. The low jack player shows ace queen offsuit and binked the ace. Wow, what a freaking call that he made on the flop. That was actually insane. You just never know what you'll see here at the Gardens. Alright, in this hand, we have queen jack of spades in the small blind. The low jack limps. The cutoff opens to $25. The button calls. And now I 3-bet squeeze to $120. I'm tired of not being aggressive. I shouldn't be afraid to 3-bet, so let's turn up the heat. The preflop razor folds, so we're probably taking down this hand. The button tanks like he wants to call, but then ends up folding his cards. He asks if I have rockets. I shake my head, and I'm just gonna try to not take offense to that. He only thinks I 3-bet aces. What kind of nit does he think I am, huh? In this next hand, we pick up ace queen offsuit on the button. The cutoff opens to $20. With such a premium, I 3-bet to $60. Only the cutoff player makes the call. Heads up to the flop comes 9-8-7, 2 diamonds and 1 heart. The cutoff checks. On this flop, I should not hit this flop at all, so I check back. The turn gets worse. The 10 of diamonds, putting out 2 flush draws and a 4-liner to the straight out. This board is beyond wet. Wet is an understatement. It's drenched. He bets out for $50 now, and now I'm forced to fold, and we haven't been able to hit a flop in a while, so our stack's been taking hits, down to $700. So if big Broadway cards can't win us a pot, then let's try some suited gappers. We have 9-7 of diamonds on the button. The cutoff opens to $15. I call. A big blind and under the gun 1 limper also make the call. 4 ways to the flop comes 6-4-3 rainbow with 1 diamond. It checks all the way to the preflop razor, who C-bets $25. Interesting, because this low flop shouldn't connect well with his range at all, so I call with my gutter and backdoor flush draw. And the under the gun 1 limper calls as well. 3 ways now. The turn is the king of diamonds. We pick up a flush draw to go along with our gutter. It checks to the preflop razor again, and now he sizes up to $70. I think about raising after picking up additional equity, but I just think that the king favors his range way more than it does mine. So wouldn't really make sense to raise in this spot. So I just make the call, and the under the gun 1 player folds. Heads up, hoping for a diamond. The river is the 5 of hearts. Cha-ching! We hit our straight. It's not the diamond we're looking for, but I'll take it. There's a 4-liner out to the straight now, so I expect our opponent to check. To my surprise, he fires a 3rd barrel for $140 this time. How interesting. Does he ever have 8-7 here? Well, I have a straight, and a straight is hard to beat, so whatever. Can't be afraid of the nuts, so I raise to $340. The cutoff, snap calls. Okay, well, if he had the nuts, he would have re-raised, so I feel pretty good. I show my 9-7, and he shows Jack 7 for the same straight. Darn it, I should have raised him on the turn to get him off his hand. We end up chopping the pot and only make a few bucks. Not even a straight can win us a pot at this point. Okay, we haven't won a pot in the past hour, and chopping doesn't count. So let's try to win one here with Queen Jack of clubs in the cutoff. There's an open to $15 in the low jack, the hijack calls, and now I 3-bet squeeze once again to $60. The big blind and hijack make the call. 3 ways to the flop comes 7-5-3, 2 spades and 1 club. When it checks to me, I c-bet $60, thinking that they wouldn't have hit this flop, and we can take it down right here and now. Unfortunately, the big blind calls, and this is the tight grandpa, by the way, so he's probably chasing a flush or has an overpair like 8s or 9s again. The hijack folds, and now it's heads up to the turn, which is the 8 of spades. I kid you not, the grandpa now sits straight up like he can't believe he just hit the flush.
You can't believe what fell.
He probably has the nuts. He double checks his cards to make sure he indeed has a flush, and then decides to sneakily check. Well, how suspicious. With these clear tells, I check back, basically giving up.
Check.
The river is even worse, the king of spades, putting 4 spades out. I could credibly rep the ace-high flush because I am the 3-better in this hand, so I would have more ace of spades in my range than he does. But all that theory goes out the window when he leads out for $200. Yeah, not even gonna try bluffing this guy. I fold my nothing hand, and we continue to donate to the elderly. Our stack is down to $600. Alright, this is the hand of the night, so pay attention. Things get crazy. We pick up ace-jack offsuit in under the gun 2. There's a $10 under the gun straddle on. I raise it up to $35. The cutoff calls, and the straddler calls as well. 3 ways to the flop comes Jack 10-6, 2 diamonds. Yes, we finally flopped something good. Top pair, top kicker. Oh baby, let's end the drought. So when it checks to me, I c-bet $50, trying to charge any draws on this wet flop. The cutoff calls, and now the straddler check raises to $115. It's slightly larger than a min click. It's a very weird bet size if I'm honest. So with top pair, top kicker, and the ace of diamonds, I'm not going anywhere, so I make the call. The cutoff calls as well. Still 3 ways in a bloated pot now. The turn is the 7 of diamonds, completing the flush draw. The straddler slows down and checks. I think the cutoff could have a flush here, so I also check, trying to pot control. And now the cutoff bets out for $240 pretty quickly. The straddler folds, and now it's on me. I weigh all my options. I can fold, but I have the ace of diamonds, so we always have a backup to fall on. So folding seems very wrong. Calling seems alright to see the next card, hoping to bink the nut flush. Going all in seems decent because I only have $460 at this point. So if I call now, I'm putting in more than half my stack, so I'm committing myself already if I only call. However, if I do go all in and get called, then I'm basically drawing super slim against a made flush, right? I think about it, and I choose to just make the call, hoping another diamond comes out. So I slide in $240 worth of chips, and I'm praying for a diamond, please. It's down to the 2 of us. And the river comes. The 2 of spades. The brick of all bricks. Well, no improvement. I check once again, hoping we go to showdown. And now our opponent snap jams. barely covering me for my last 220 bucks. Now I'm really in the tank. I think about all the hands from the beginning to the end and the speed at which he announced all in without even thinking too long about it. This player has shown to not go for thin value with strong hands because I've seen this same player check his 10 high flush in a previous hand on the river. So if he doesn't have the nut flush, then why is he betting all in and why so fast? I'm thinking for a while and ultimately decide that because I have the ace of diamonds, he doesn't have the nuts and therefore is probably bluffing. So I eventually decide on a call. He says, good call, and shows 9-7 of clubs for just a pair of sevens. I show my ace jack, and we get a full double up. Let's go. Oh my god, I can feel the stress being lifted from my shoulders right now. Holy. I am super happy to be right about this call, and props to our opponent for putting us in such tough spot. Let me know what you guys would have done in this hand, and if you call or fold the river, or even if you have led or raised the turn. I'm curious to know what you guys would have done in this spot. Anyways, our stack hits the all-time high of the session of $1,350. Let's go. 2 hands later, we pick up the 99s. Pocket 9s on the button. The cutoff opens to $25. I make the call, and it goes 6 ways to a flop of King Jack 9 Rainbow. Cha-ching! We flop bottom set. It checks to the cutoff, who c-bets $45. I choose to slow play and just flat call, and the small blind calls as well. 3 ways to low turn is the 2 of hearts. Nice. Total brick. It checks to the cutoff once again, and he sizes up now to $155. This is the same player who had Jack 7 suited that triple broed with a gutter, and then we ended up chopping the pot with. So he's more on the aggressive side and is definitely capable of making some bluffs. I also think that if I raise this large bet, I think my opponents will only call with hands like Queen 10 friendly nut straight, pocket jacks, pocket kings, which we all lose to. And the hands that we beat are ace king, king jack, and king queen. And that's about it. For these reasons, I just make the call and the small blind folds. Down to heads up, the river is the 2 of spades, boating us up. Our opponent now slows down and checks. So now that we are boated up, we're no longer afraid of Queen 10. We essentially have the nuts after he checks. So I choose to bet a polarizing amount of $400, a 2/3 pot size bet. Trying to get paid by a non-believing king. He thinks about it and makes the fold. Yeah, I'm not too thrilled about how I played this hand because I basically got min value. I didn't 3-bet pre-flop, nor did I raise any street. So I think it's a pretty poorly played hand by me. I think I should have raised the flop or turn at least. But as played on the river, I probably should have bet a very small amount on the river to induce a bluff raise because I don't think he had too much in his hand. With a strong king like ace king or king queen, he probably bets the river himself. And if he had queen 10 or anything better than king queen really, he's most likely going to value bet the river himself. So when he checks the river after barreling twice, he seems very weak. I should have realized this and sized my bet down to $100 to $150 in order to either extract value from a crying call from my jack, or weak king, or induce a bluff. Definitely left a couple $100 on the table in this hand, but oh well. We'll learn from this hand and be better next time. Still happy to take down a nice sized pot, and our stack is up to $1,750. We seem to be on a heater because now we look down at the ladies. Pocket queens once again in Under the Gun 2. Under the Gun 1 opens to $15. I 3-bet to $45 with the ladies, and the low jack cold calls my 3-bet. The cutoff, button, and Under the Gun 1 player also make the call. Wow, this is really an action table. So now it's 5 ways going off to a flop in a 3-bet pot, which comes Jack 7-4, 2 clubs. Nice to flop an overpair multi-way, but I do need to be wary of any sets like pocket jacks, 7s, or 4s that people love to set mine with. When it checks to me, I think this is a mandatory c-bet if a flush draw out and with my overpair, so I bet out for $110. The low jack on my left now re-raises to $300. Well, that's not good. And that looks incredibly strong. I instantly put the low jack on a set. I've seen him flat pocket jacks at this table before, so he could definitely have pocket jacks or sevens right now. When it folds to me, I just have a sick feeling in my gut about this hand. Even though we have an overpair on a draw heavy board and the ladies do treat me well, I think I just gotta follow my gut and make a disciplined fold. And that's what we do. We fold, we cut our losses at $155. I guess we'll never know if we made the right decision or not. Just kidding. Before I left the table, I asked him what he had in that hand when he re-raised to 300, and he told me he had Jack 7 for top 2 pair and was afraid of the flush draw. Don't really know if I believe him that he calls with Jack 7 suited facing an early position open and then an early position 3-bet, but I'm certain that we were beat. I still think he had pocket jacks or 7s, and if he actually had Jack 7 suited, then nice flop to you, sir. Either way, we dodged a massive cooler. What a wild 10 minutes it has been. Our stack comes down a little to $1,600. Next, we have Ace Jack offsuit once again, but in the small blind this time. Under the gun one opens to $15. The button calls. I would normally 3-bet, but I choose to just call, respecting the under the gun one early position open, and the big blind calls as well. 4 ways to the flop comes Jack 4-3, 2 spades. I check being out of position, and action checks through. The turn is the Jack of clubs. Cha-ching! We turn trips with the best kicker. Nice. We basically have the nuts. I check, setting the trap, and it checks to the button, who takes a stab for $25. I just flat, hoping others come in as well, and the big blind folds, but the under the gun one player thinks for a while, and then chooses to call the 25-2. 3 ways now. The river is the brick 6 of diamonds. With this brick, I can either bet myself into 2 people or check again, letting the button bluff at the pot again. In the moment, I choose to bet large for $80, trying to rep a missed flush draw. They both sadly fold. I should have checked and let the button blast off. I hate how hindsight is always 20/20. 5 minutes later, we pick up the Cowboys. Pocket kings in the cutoff. The hijack opens to $20. This is the aggressive player on my right. I 3-bet him to $60. He makes the call, and it's heads up to the flop, which of course comes the ace in the window, followed by a 7 and 9 of spades. How come whenever he 3-bet kings, an ace is on the flop 90% of the time? Someone please logically explain the math behind this. Well, whatever. Let's just hope he has a smaller pocket pair like pocket 10s. So when he checks, I c-bet $50 like I would do with my whole range, and he makes the call. The turn is the 5 of diamonds, and he checks again. Not loving the spot too much, so I slow down and check for pot control. Let's just try to get to a cheap river. The river is the 8 of clubs, putting a 4-liner out to the straight. He checks for a 3rd time. I'm happy to check back, and to my surprise, he shows 7-5 offsuit for 2 pair. Wow. Seriously though, what is this guy playing? He's loosey-goosey for sure. Alright, let's try to shake off that last hand with ace-king offsuit in the low jack. Under the gun 2 limps, I raise to $25, and only the under the gun 2 player makes the call. Let's label him our nemesis. I think he deserves his title after cracking our kings with 7-5 offsuit. It's heads up with our nemesis. The flop comes king, queen, deuce, rainbow. Beautiful flop. We have top pair, top kicker, and there's no wacky BS that our nemesis could have to make a wacky 2-pair combo against us. When he checks, I c-bet $20 with the range advantage, except this time, I actually have what I'm repping, and he makes the call. The turn is the 5 of clubs, bringing in a flush draw. He checks once again, and now I size up to $60. Come on, give me my money back, you donkey. He calls once again. All right, perfect. Okay, so when he calls, now I'm trying to manifest another king just in case he randomly has like queen 5 suited or something stupid like that. And it would also let me get paid off by a queen as well, because with 2 kings out on the board, it makes it much less likely I actually have a king in my hand. The poker gods seem to want justice because the river is the bink king of clubs. Cha-ching! We river trips with the best kicker once again against our nemesis. Our opponent checks for a 3rd time, and even though the flush draw gets there, he probably would have let out if he had the backdoor flush draw, trying to get paid. So I feel comfortable betting for value, trying to get a queen or worse king to call. So I size up to $150. Our nemesis is in the tank facing this 3rd barrel. Come on, I know you want to call. You've been calling me all day, so why not this time, right? He indeed wants to call because he flicks in a chip, and I confidently show my ace king, and he mucks. Let's go. We got him back. We have avenged our kings with ace king. Our stack is back at 1700. In this next hand, we have king 10 offsuit in the low jack. I open it up to $20. It's a little wide, but we are on a roll, and it goes 4 ways to a flop of king 8 4, 2 diamonds. It checks to me, and with top pair on a wet board, I see bet $35. Only the tight grandpa makes the call in this big blind. Heads up, the turn is the 8 of spades pairing the 2nd card. The tight grandpa checks again. Even though an 8 now beats me, I think I can still charge flush draws on this board. Also, our opponent looked extra close at the turn, like he really needed help on the turn, which could be indicative that an 8 helped him, or that he's still on a draw and he didn't get there. I think it's more likely that he's on a draw because he didn't sit straight up this time in excitement when the turn came, like he did last time with his nut flush. So I feel confident about my hand still. So I bet again for $60. He comes along with another call. The tight grandpa checks dark now, and the river comes the 10 of hearts, bricking out the flush draw and upgrading us to top 2 pair. I think my hand is good, and now I beat hands like king jack and king queen. Also, if all the draws missing, I can probably get any king to call me. So I size up to $150, trying to get some extra value, and he makes the fold. We finally got this tight grandpa back. Woohoo! I think we're even now. 10 minutes later, we look down at jack 9 offsuit in the cutoff. The hijack, our nemesis, opens to $15. I make the call, and it goes 4 ways to a flop of queen 9 3, 2 diamonds. When it checks to me, with middle pair and a backdoor straight draw, I bet out for $30 as a feeler bet, and of course, only our nemesis calls. He always calls. Heads up, the turn is the jack of diamonds. It completes the flush draw, but gives us a vulnerable 2 pair. I think our nemesis would have bet the flop if he had a flush draw, or any draw on the flop for that matter. We've seen him triple barrel with gutter balls, so I doubt he has a draw this time. So I think he has more like a hand like ace 10 or something like that, maybe with 1 diamond. So when he checks, I size up to $75 with my 2 pair, trying to charge any draws that he might have, and he quickly folds. We take it down once again against our nemesis. Let's go. Our stack is chipping up to 1850. We see a couple more flops and we chip down to 1750. Then we cash out and grab a bite to eat at the food lounge. We slurp on some more delicious pho. I'll show you guys some different food next time, but today was just a nice cold day for some hot soup. Remy came by and gambled a bit and lost some money, so I bought him some pho to cheer him up. Mona was down about $500 before we had some pho, but after the pho, she turned things around and ran it back up into the profit. Let's go! The pho here really is something else.
Wow, the magic pho. There you guys have it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this action-packed session. We were running pretty hot, making some well-timed bluffs, calling at the right spots. So pretty great result overall. We were in for $500, out for $1,750 for a profit of $1,250 in about 5.5 hours. So our total hourly comes out to $227 per hour. So pretty good hourly if I do say so myself. Of course, it's not always going to be this way, but I do enjoy it when I run hot. So if you guys wanted to see what I did during the month of December, feel free to stick around till the end of the video. And if you're just here for the poker content and poker hands, no worries. I appreciate the support. And I hope to see you guys in the next one. Peace.
We go on a little snowboarding trip to Mammoth with some of our friends. We warm up on some bunny slopes. Some of us are worse than others.
I don't know where she's going, but... Oh no! There you go. Oh! Good job.
With some more practice, we were able to conquer the bunny slopes all in a good day's work. Then we test our skills on the intermediate slopes. Some of us did well, and some of us ate shit. All in all, it was a blast. Remy and I get ourselves some tickets to see the Clippers vs Kings game. We get some drinks at a nice rooftop bar with a gorgeous view of LA. We buy ourselves some overpriced beers and see an old legend of the game.
Yo, that's Jerry West, baby! That's Jerry West!
Then we see Kawhi dish off a dime for a sweet slam dunk.
Yeah! Oh! Ah!
Remy and I bet a pricey beer on the game because he's a die-hard Kings fan. But by halftime, the Clippers are already destroying the Kings, so I get my beer in advance. I was fortunately able to catch my first ever shirt at a basketball game. Just look how excited I am.
I got a t-shirt! I got a t-shirt, ready? Go Kings! Go Kings!
We have Remy capture the moment, as Remy calls it, with the Clipper mascot Chuck the Condor. As expected, the Clippers take a convincing W, winning 119-99. Easy beer. Cha-ching! Because Remy is super bummed out that the Kings got spanked, I buy Remy some In-N-Out on our way back home. This was one of the funniest basketball games I've ever been to, mostly due to all the drinks that we got, and these were the closest seats that I've ever sat at before. Always down to do it again, Remy.